Welcome to the Coach's Decision. Disclaimer. The views, language, and candor expressed on this series are designed to provoke thought and conversation amongst adults. Some opinions and perspectives may be unsuitable for those who are emotionally weak. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to Coach's Decision with Chris P. Reed, where we dive into topics each week that could help you or someone close to you get through. Many of my clients are skilled at the game of life, but there are times where you need to protect the player from themselves. There are times when you need a coach's decision. My top client and producer has decided to give you, the audience, a glimpse into his sessions each week to help him navigate these moments live. Hey, Fred, what you got for us this week?
First of all, I think it's crazy that you don't want to know what I have beforehand before going live stream on social media. But that's a topic for another day.
It would be just like a record, but just so the people are clear, the way in which we operate is I have to be trained, prepared, and ready to adjust to whatever strategy you come up with as I coach you through life or through these situations. So it can't be a situation where I get prepped and have to bring all this stuff because we're just having an adult, mature conversation about practical things. Now, there are times where I need to go back and do some research. You do bring me some heavy stuff from time to time. And I say, I don't have an answer for that right now, but it'll never be a situation where I don't have an answer. It might be a crazy one, but the answer is coming. So I like it. I like the freestyle. I don't fear the freestyle cipher.
Okay. I personally fear the freestyle. I like to be prepped.
You'll get there.
But I'm
I can
not.
coach that too. I can
I'm
coach
not
that
a
too.
coach. Oh, you can coach that? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you have this saying, these thoughts, all this stuff that all the things you go through. And sometimes people don't recognize that they have some responsibility in their own, sometimes trauma, sometimes mishaps. And you say the call is coming from inside the house.
That is correct. That is correct. They're the architect of their own misery, and the call is coming from inside the house. Are two popular things that are thrown back at me by my client.
Can you go more into that? Is that like you're saying that we don't, at that point or in that scenario, we're not showing accountability? We're not realizing that we provoked the situation? Or what's some examples that the call is coming from inside the house?
I think that that's a lack of awareness. I know that we've had numerous conversations about you engaging in business and in personal conversations with people who were just straight up delusional. Now, I will say you are not licensed and certified to diagnose delusion, but I understand your feeling in that regard. The idea of, and once again, every client is different because you have to create a common language and meet people where they are. I know the things that trigger emotion and response for you. And so I talk to you accordingly to that. And I know that you've seen the movie where the call was coming from. That she called the 911 to tell that the killer was close by, and they were like, the call has come from inside the house. The moral of the story is you grew up in an environment where you had to keep your head on the swivel and you had to be aware of your surroundings. Sometimes in life, due to blessings, due to age, due to positive things, we can get big, fat, and happy. We can get lax. We can be caught slipping. And a lot of times for somebody like you, it's a situation where, like I always say, the Bible says you do better when you know better. There are things that we go through and I'm like, he knows better. So I just have to remind him that he has allowed for himself to kind of relax and get comfortable all of a sudden. I'm not saying go around and be paranoid. Don't take your boys everywhere you go because you're paranoid. But you're not living by the sword anymore. You're in a situation where you can kind of adjust yourself, but that doesn't mean completely let the guard down, leave the doors unlocked. No matter what neighborhood you live in, you still want to have a security system if affordable. You still want to have certain protocols and procedures. You don't want to have a situation where your garage is always open and all that kind of stuff, no matter what, because of where you've come from. And so sometimes there's situations where instead of just saying you know better and chastising and finger wagging, I'm saying, look, the call is coming from inside the house. This is too close to home for you not to realize that you let this get that far in. Because a lot of times the way we speak is once somebody has that type of proximity to you to affect you, you allow for that level of proximity. You allow for that level of comfort where you let your guard down and somebody got in. And there's an old cliche or an old sentiment that the person that will hurt you the most is the person that you care about the most because you allow for them access to your emotions. And so somebody that you don't give a damn about, that you could care less if they say this or say that or do this or do that because you can write them off. It's when your mama, your sister, your cousin, your best friend, your wife, when these people betray you or harm or hurt you, and it's literally so close, I don't go so far as say sleeping with the enemy, but at least inside the house, I envision that you're in a different room and you just didn't realize that you weren't safe where you were, but you still have a chance. Sleeping with the enemy is pretty much done. Like it's it's a done deal. So that's the difference in that regard.
So I think sometimes we recognize it in other people
Mm-hmm.
and not ourselves. But once we start recognizing it in other people, we can start to recognize it better in ourselves. So if we recognize it in other people, should we address it or should we just hang back? So I can give you an example.
Yeah, yeah, do that.
A while ago, someone told me that they had ran out of gas. The reason they ran out of gas is because their
Excuse.
their husband used to put gas is supposed to put gas in the car every weekend, and he didn't that particular weekend. It's a gauge in the car.
It is. It's built for that. Yeah, it's built for that. The
How would you
modern cars will
respond to
tell
that?
you you low on fuel. In fact,
Right.
I don't know if it's an old hot rod. I don't know the situation. But once again, I want to correct you and correct the audience in the fact there's a difference between reasons and excuses. This was not a reason. This was an excuse. And the idea of not preparing yourself, once again, that was a lack of awareness. When you get into a car, if you go through driver's ed, they tell you to check the gauges, check the mirrors, put your seat in the right situation to be comfortable, and then look both ways, left, right, left. All these little tricks and tips allow for you to safely get from A to B back to A. A lot of times we shortcut. A lot of times we leaning back in the seat and we not doing 10 and 2. There are certain things that's put in place not to make you not be cool, but to make you be safe. Put on a seatbelt. You know what I'm saying? Things of that nature. So if you getting in and you just cutting through and I'm not saying do a 15-point inspection every time you jump into your whip. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is if you got a modern car, it's giving you all kind of sensory information to a tire pressure being low and a this being that, and you need to take it. My car told me, no, my wife told me my car told her 2 weeks ago it was ready to go in. So I got to make an appointment because the car said it was time to go in. Then her car texted me last week and said, hey, she got a recall. Bring her in. You know what I mean? So if you lean
Nice.
into the modern, faculties, you in a better situation. But the moral of the story is when that happened, you got to eat these L's. You got to say, shit, I didn't. You got to take culpability. And that's what we talk about we talk about deflection all the time. You have a lot of conversations with grown-ups that tend to deflect and try to cast aspersions on others. Well, if they had done this and they had done that. The one thing when I used to coach football was I would always tell my kids, at some point in time, you can't blame the refs, the weather, the play call, or the coaching. You have to look at yourself and say, what could I have done to make that situation better? Now, if you feel like I did everything I possibly should have and could have to make that a good situation, now you can move on to start pointing fingers and calling people out because you armed up. You good. Anything they say, you got to come back for. But start with you. Check in on yourself and do that. So in that situation, she didn't really have an excuse because regardless of what had happened every other time, this was not that time, and you were the one inconvenienced and stranded. You was the one that had to feel that. Will you do it again? I would love to have a conversation with that person and say, how many more times did you get in the vehicle after that you didn't check the gauge? Because you can get big, fat, happy, and comfortable and not realize the call is coming from inside the house. It's easy to do, especially when you're in a loving, caring relationship where somebody allows you to get lazy.
So Kendra said, I think that you're talking to my mama, but I told her she was too dependent on her husband. She has a mind of her own. Think first. It does sound like I know you can't see the comments, but it sounds like you were speaking to that.
This is just sage wisdom, right? It's like the old folks say. People didn't even go to school. The reality of it is, shit happen. Like it's gonna happen. You're gonna get caught slipping. Something's going to go wrong. It's where I find it egregious is when you immediately point the finger at somebody else. Like your first gear is somebody done did me dirty, and I gotta, they need retribution on this regard. I do feel like there's a comfort and a reason that I know Kendra's mom is married, and he's a wonderful guy. I know this man. He did not do that purposely. He did not put his wife in a situation where she was stranded on the side of the road purposely, unless she was messing around. But the reality of it is, it's a situation where she said, dang, I didn't do it. And he probably had intentions. That was on the thought today. So his intention was not to do that, but things happen. So because he didn't intend to do it. Now, if he had said, yeah, I left you because I'm tired of you leaning on me and it all being on me. That's childish. And they got a whole nother conversation to be had in their marriage, right? But the idea of it is sometimes things slip through the cracks. we have to give grace. And like I say, the best place to start is at the beginning and with questions. And so, hey, this is how it usually goes. This time it didn't go that way. Is that something I could be concerned about? Are you still doing that? Are we still on that? Me and my wife have a lot of those conversations. That's what we doing now. That's how we do it. Though. So that's what we do. So that's what we doing now.
That
It's more
sounds like
her to
that
me.
sound like a contract revision.
Do it. But you gotta be careful, man, because you think it'd be about this. Is that what we doing now? We not putting dishes away? And then all of a sudden cooking cuts out. Like, hold on. That's cruel and unusual. You know what I'm saying? It's not bilateral in that regard. So I would just be mindful of that. But I think that in the situation where you have to be aware of things that could affect you, you do have a responsibility for that. Now, if you have people that are loving enough to help you from time to time and make you not it all be on you, because you hear that a lot too. It's all on me and I got it's all on me. Then you have to figure out, okay, how much outsourcing do you require? How much of a person are you that you need to outsource you to other people? That you're doing too much.
So finger pointing.
Mm-hmm.
The call is coming from inside the house. Provoking people is the call coming from inside the house?
Explain provoking people.
Sometimes, unfortunately, domestic violence happens.
Yes.
Or confrontations. A lot of times it's not just someone just sitting there watching the game and they decide to hit somebody.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So is that the call coming from inside the house or is that something different?
That's something different. In light of the Diddy trial, instead of saying domestic violence or domestic abuse, we will say meeting force with force. At some point in time, people feel compelled to meet force with force or actions with actions. Once again, is that what we own? Because if that's what you own, that's what I'm going to be on. There ain't going to be no killing without killing. Oh, Jeff Ford, you know what I'm saying? So the idea of, you have to, man, me and you had a very good conversation about 2 years ago, and it was concerning leadership in corporations. And something was said about a leader that you and I used to think was cool, and then he started having diminishing returns. And for the audience sake, the way that this conversation went was there was another leader who was high up in the company, and he said, "Oh, Chris, you reporting to this dude? That's a good thing because he's been around and this and that." And one of the things that was said was he knows so much and knows so many people, he has the ability to read the room. And I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll take that." When I came back to you, this is the semantics that we talk about. And I said, for whatever reason, they believe that he has the ability to read the room. And you said, and I quote, he can read, but he can't comprehend, which is a totally different thing. I can read to you that message in Portuguese that we put up for our Brazilian followers up there. I have no idea what that's saying. I can read the words and sound it out. I have no idea what I just told these people. My ability to comprehend is different than my ability to read. So reading the room in a relationship is extremely important. Comprehending what the hell's going on, discerning. My wife will come home and I'll say, "How was your day?" "It was good." I told you 55% is body language, 38% is tone, 7% are the actual vocabulary words coming out your mouth. That's the way language is extrapolated. I could tell by the 55% it wasn't good, but I got to let that come to me. But I had to kind of shield up a little bit because I realized eventually it's going to come out. So let me just be cool, not monopolize the situation, talk a little bit about my day, but she still seemed kind of distant and distracted. Then, hour and a half later, we eating, and she was like, "Let me tell you what happened in this meeting today." There it is. And anybody that's been with anybody knows that that's how it goes. The person doesn't want to burden you, or they don't want to seem like they always complaining, or whatever the case may be. But sometimes you, in a relationship, have to sign up for letting people get it off their chest. You are the valve. You are the sanctuary from the world to help that person feel better. Now, what I said with you, as far as when it gets to a point where this is, we button heads, is because you not letting me get mine off at the same rate you getting yours off. You're constantly needing counseling, constantly needing a hug, constantly needing your feet rub and your back rub. But every time I need a hug or a pat on the back or a sense of encouragement or some eggs fried hard, you tired. Every time I need some laundry picked up or from the dry cleaner or this and that, not going that way. You know what I mean? It's a reciprocity. I think that if you can maintain that balance, then you don't end up in a situation where, and that balance is also balance of communication. If you've ever been in a relationship where you look up, and I don't think we haven't done too much counting. We might have to do that with the last session. But if you look up and you look at your call log, you can go into the system. If anybody has a cell phone plan that they pay for, you can go in and look at every call, every text that went out and how long it lasted. And if you look, and 77 of them was outgoing to him, and 12 of them was incoming to you, The math is math. You need to comprehend the situation. If you're always the one that initiates the pleasantries, if you're the one that's always feeling like you're pulling more of the weight, you have to realize this is not equally yoked, like we talked about last week. There's something that's not vibrating on the same frequency. And so when it turns to an attitude turning to a physical dynamic, it started as an attitude. It's something had to go extremely wrong for everything to be cool. It was all good just a week ago. And then you get punched in the jaw. First one I saw, hit him in the jaw. You know what I'm saying? That escalation, even the law doesn't believe that. The law doesn't believe everything was fine. You came home and then a sane person socked you. They'll ask where there are arguments, where there's what was going on, is there this or that. They'll ask a lot of different questions. And it could be that you weren't paying attention, that they was paying attention to you sneaking off taking calls, or they was paying attention to you coming home later. But the reality of it is, it doesn't just go violent immediately for no good reason. And I'm not saying there's justification there. What I am saying is, if you're reading the room and watching your surroundings, peeping the scene, it's rare that you get caught off guard with physical violence. So I think that's a little different than the call coming from inside the house, because that's a complete, not only a lack of awareness, but you're being negligent to your own health and safety. That's a totally different level to me. But I mean, of course, I'll listen to you and the people. And what do y'all think in that regard? Women have a different perspective maybe than this, and I don't want to speak on their behalf.
First of all, I'll let you know that Sydney said that meeting force with force, all that, not in this house.
So wait a second. What that leads me to believe is you can apply force with no repercussion, or I can apply force with no. And I know that that's not true. I know that nobody's allowing people to apply force with no answer. So yes, force will always be met with force. It will be. It has to balance out at some point.
Or maybe there's no force to create that reciprocal force.
Then it wouldn't be meeting force with force. Once force is introduced, once that's what we own, that's what we own. You got to be careful for people that act a certain way and then apologize their way out of it and make excuses as to why they were behaving badly and things of that nature, because that can become problematic and consistent in relationships. But I do not believe it's a situation where it's okay for you to go upside his head and do all these other things. But then if he does it, you were so much smaller than him, and you play basketball. You play basketball, I play basketball. It's the Shaq thing, right? He's so big, he should be able to take these fouls. That's not how fouling works. If you look at the definition of fouling, these are technically and legitimately fouls that are occurring. Just because I got a woman that is 6'4", 218, it shouldn't be okay for me to punch her like a man because she's bigger than men. Because that's kind of what is being said is, if you can take it, it's okay for me to dish it. But as soon as it becomes back as an opposite reaction or a different level of force, then you become a victim. We see that all the time, where somebody will go off, like that woman that was talking about that little boy in the park. She was talking real reckless. Then when people was like, oh, that's how you going to be? Is that what we own? Well, then that's what we own. You know what I'm saying? So be mindful when you are willing to apply force, that there may be an equal and opposite reaction, or there may be some reciprocity to the force that you are willing to apply, or the attitude that you're willing to extend.
Daniel says, ain't no free licks.
Not free lunch, free licks. I agree with that. Yeah, it's
Unless it's a lollipop.
I don't even know if them free. You know what I'm saying? I just don't believe in gratis in that regard. But I do think that you have to be mindful when you get yourself in a situation where you feel like you can act with impunity. If you respect and love any person, any business, any relationship, any job, don't just think you can do whatever the hell you want, and you that cold that they will never get you won't get your comeuppance.
Kendra said, I have to be silent. Sometimes my force, make it big on the screen, may hurt. Matching energy is not always the best thing to do.
Oh, it is. It is. This is my belief. If some relationships are toxic and people love toxicity, the reason why I believe matching, we talked about equal. Now we're talking about matching. Matching energy is never a bad idea if you're calibrating the energy, because sometimes people don't know their strength. Sometimes women have hurt my feelings. And when I hurt their feelings back and explain the level of my feelings on the chart, they realize, oh, I didn't realize what I was doing was making you feel a 5 until you made me feel a 5. I was like, I've been telling you I was a 5. Yeah, but you wasn't destroyed and crying in your hands and all that. I told you I was a 5. You have to believe me. Either you trust me or you don't. Any idea of matching anything is a level of reciprocity that we spoke about previously, where you're exchanging good and bad to create balance. It's all about creating balance. Now, what is not a good idea is to withhold or hold back because you're assuming, presuming, or figuring somebody else's level of emotion, somebody else's level of ability to absorb what you have. Because when you start diminishing and hiding yourself, you're being fraudulent in the relationship. Then when the real you comes out, it's a shock to everybody because this was never you. Now you going off and cussing and all this other stuff and you never cussed before. Now you've gone crazy. But the reality is, no, I was just fake for 3 or 4 years. This is the real me. Whose fault is that? That's then your fault because you were not presenting to the true authentic you in a situation where you were trying to build something long term. Now, if you're just there for fun and just hanging out and stuff, then save some for yourself. But you'll never know how much you'll get out of any association until you're willing to give to that association. I had a job one time in Atlanta where the girl said, if we make $18 an hour, I'm only giving them $10 an hour worth of work. And I could not understand it. Like she was dead serious. She didn't want to feel cheated at the job. And so when I got promoted a couple times and talked to her again, she was like, I just can't. It's because she started making excuses as to why I was promoted, as opposed to me doing $18, $19, $20 an hour worth of work and getting what was received from that effort. You got to at least try. Now, sometimes you're going to give the effort and you're going to realize this person's not worth all of me. This person's not worth it. And then you have to make a decision. How long do you give it before you pivot? But if you just holding back, you become the person that you've been holding back from eventually. The quote is, I pretended to be the man that I wanted to be until I became him or he became me. And if you pretend long enough, you will become that man, that woman, whether you want to or not, because that's just nature of conditioned response. So I don't agree with Kendra in the regard of holding back and not matching force with force. If that's what they own, you have the ability to be on that too. You can't let them punk you and act like you ain't the prize or you ain't capable or you're not on their level. Why would you even want to be with somebody that feels like you're beneath them and not on their level to come back like that? I want that action.
So just Chev said, my force is silent.
And as long as your partner's force is silent, this will work. Real simple. Real simple. Think about the concept of you being with a partner and they're loud and obnoxious and overbearing and you're a nun. You're a monk. That looks crazy as it sounds because it's crazy. You have to have people that are willing to feed off of each other and feed into each other. And if your thing is shutting down and making that person guess, they're probably going to guess wrong. Now you're mad because they're guessing incorrectly. That's you, not them. Nobody was built for you to know you as you are. You have to teach people who you are and how to treat you. God didn't create people, and from birth, they anointed that person. There's a red thread of love that existed between y'all throughout time, and he found you, and he knew exactly how to talk to you, feed you, love you, rub your feet, take your hair down, trim your eyebrows. Like he didn't, you had to teach him what was good for you, how much sugar you wanted in your coffee, what type of cakes you want from Nothing But Cake. Like you had to teach these things. But for whatever reason, people say, you just should know. You just should figure it out. You just should. No, nobody's raised for you. Stop believing somebody's raised for you. You have to imbue that talent and that opportunity into them once you get with them. Do the work. Stop being scared to do the work.
So there's no fake it till you make it, Chev.
My thoughts on fake it till you make it in any sense, professional, personal, or whatever. I just think that you're doing yourself a disservice when you're faking it. Either you that person or you not. And let me say this. That means that there's a saying that I dress for the job that I wanted as opposed to dressing for the job that I have. No, dress for who you, if you feel comfortable wearing that suit, wear that suit. Now don't be unsafe. Let's just keep this real. But when you say fake it, you wasn't faking it when you was going to night school and dressing nice and taking care of yourself and being well groomed and speaking the way you spoke and all that when you was in the mailroom or you was on the call center floor. You was being authentically yourself. And then what happened was people started to see that and said, he doesn't belong here. He should be leading people. He should be here. And then eventually you raise up to the level that matches your energy, that vibrates on your frequency. So I would never fake it, because then you'll end up looking back on your life and saying, I shouldn't have done that as long as I did that. I shouldn't have been in that relationship, that situation, that job as long as I was in it, because I was going along to get along. And I was acting like something that wasn't natural to me or comfortable to me. And then it ultimately became comfortable. It's the boiling frog syndrome. So I send a video on the second session to a lot of my clients, and it's a boiling frog. And the concept is this: if you have no frogs are harmed in this analogy, but just listen to the analogy. If you have a pot on the stove and the water is boiling, and you take a frog and you throw it into the pot, the frog will jump out of the pot immediately because it's been shocked and scalded. If you take that same frog, put it in the water, and the water is room temperature, and you turn the eye on low, and the water starts to heat up, the frog will sit there in that water and adjust to it until it boils to death. Because things can become comfortable over time. It's called a frequency illusion in psychology. You can get comfortable with dysfunction. You can get comfortable with bad situations, bad credit, being overcharged or being treated and talked to any kind of way. You can get comfortable with that to where that's all you know. And then it's hard for you to get out of that and get better. So I don't believe you should, if you have the ability, fake it. Don't fake it. Be you and see how that works. Now, if you can come back and tell me, I'll give a free session to the person that tells me I was myself and it never worked out. And the reason why that session will be free, because it'll be a 5-minute session where I tell you were in the wrong environment. Yeah, that wasn't for you. That place that you were couldn't hold you. They weren't for you. So you had to move to do something that was more aligned with who you naturally are. You'll never strive for happiness or be happy in life or settled in life if you're constantly feeling like you are feeling like you're faking it.
Okay, let me do a rapid fire with you real quick.
All right, cool.
A lot of questions came in.
Okay, cool.
Your comment to nobody is smarter than you, about you, than you, my opinion. Mm-hmm. That's from Daniel Young.
No, what do you mean nobody is smarter than you than you?
Nobody's smarter than you, about you, than you.
No, so I don't know if I'll put it that way. Let me say this. People only know what they see. So if you're faking it, then all they can go by is what you faked to them. So yes, you knowing the truth, haha, it's going to make you more aligned with what's really going on. But there are people who are trained like myself, or people who understand people, that if you tell them the truth, they can assess the situation that you're too close to be able to advise you from an outside looking in, a cold eye perspective. Hey, you hot on this. Take a step back and let me tell you what I see, and you tell me where I'm wrong. That's what brothers do. That's what friends do. It's like, hold up, you kind of head over heels. Why? And then you give me the rationale, and I say, okay, I give you that. Or have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? So in the idea of somebody being smarter about you, only works if you're being transparent and candid with what you're presenting to that person. Because I can only give you what you give me in that regard. And if you're trying to fool me and fool yourself, there's nothing that can be done. But I'm not going to take the F because I wasn't smart about you. I was smart about you as I knew you, as you presented you, and I'd win that in the court of law.
So how do you match energy without bruising egos? Because some people have real fragile egos. That's from Kendra.
Okay, cool. All right, so without bruising egos, I think, let me say this. Can you tell me who said that?
Yes, it was, I can display it again, Miss Kendra.
Okay, all right, we can stop right there. I'm giving Kendra a pass because Kendra has a degree in accountancy. So she has a license to figure on other people's behalf. You trying to worry about somebody else's ego means that you trying to figure on their behalf what they can and cannot handle emotionally. If you did not go to school for that, like Kendra did, I would advise don't try to figure on somebody else's behalf. They can tell you when they offended. They can tell you when you shouldn't have said that. They can tell you I don't like being called that, or don't do that to me. Let that happen. You got to give people grace to make one mistake. Now, the best apology is change behavior. If I done told you once, I've heard a lot of let that shit happen again. I've heard that a lot. And then I have a choice to make. Am I calling bluffs? Or am I letting it happen again to prove that this is what I'm on? Is this what we on? So in the idea of concerned about bruising egos, or concerned about how somebody perceives your natural feelings, your honest feelings, my hope is that you would have assessed yourself and said, this is something that's on my spirit. I got to get this off. And then you go to that person that you care enough about to be honest with and say, look, this has been on my spirit. This is how I see it. Tell me where I may be incorrect or I'm not seeing the full picture. And you give them the opportunity to assess the situation. There are situations where women always say, give me the chance to make a decision for myself. Don't hide things from me or act like you know me better than I know myself. Give me the opportunity. I would say the same thing. Give that person the opportunity to say they've been offended or egos have been bruised. But when you start conjuring these things in your head, then it creates a situation where you're creating a narrative that never existed. And when you finish that relationship, that person hasn't gained anything, learned anything, or understand why it didn't work. And that's unfair.
Okay. So before we close out, I have a question. Body modifications, getting sick from those. Is the call coming from inside the house or outside the house? You got sick from a body modification.
Nah, I don't. So let me say this: a body modification by itself may not be attributed to the illness. Feeling like you need a body modification may be due to a psychological deficiency. I'm not gonna call it the illness because I'm not qualified to do so. But there's something about your self-esteem that makes you feel like you have to go get cut on to feel better about yourself. That would be self-esteem, right? Any idea of creating an illness from it, I would take that back to you get what you pay for. Oh, yes, I've not heard of the body modification that was done in Beverly Hills by the dude's own botched, and somebody ended up being sick in the hospital, or else that would have been followed by a lawsuit. I have, though, heard about body modifications done in Tijuana, Mexico, or in Colombia, where there is no take backsies. There's no refund. It goes in there and says warranty as is, and you pay $37.84 for a body modification, and then you're upset that what happened to you may have been haphazard, or it may not have been the greatest thing because of what the route in which you took. So if you're going to do something that extreme to your body, or that extreme to, and I'm not saying it's not routine, what I am saying is cutting yourself and augmenting yourself is a level of extreme dynamic. If your body modification costs accumulatively less than braces, then you probably should reevaluate that modification. If you could instead get braces, because braces is a commitment. It's expensive, but it's also a commitment. This is a quick fix. Be mindful. If you try to shortcut, you'll get cut short. And people try to shortcut so many things and then are amazed and offended when they get cut short, when something goes wrong. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that nothing goes wrong when you have the top doctors and whatever. Kanye West's mom died from, and he had money to get her, the best surgeons or whatever. But you got to be mindful when you start cutting and altering things, things can go wrong. The best decision is to abstain, right? That's how you don't get pregnant. That's how you don't get these staph infections. That's how you just got to stay away from it if you're concerned about that. Now, if you are a gambler and you willing to roll them dice, me and my brother talk about this all the time. He a gambler. So he like, shit, I was willing to take that L. I was willing to, whatever came from it, came from it. I don't have that strategy, that emotional aptitude to be able to say whatever happens, happens. I'm more of a control maniac than that. So any question or the answer to your body modifications, I believe that if it causes hurt, harm, or danger after the fact, the first thing I would say is what was my investment going in and how much assurances and waivers and things of that nature that was I forced to sign to kind of hint me, this is comprehending. You read the document. Did you comprehend what that document was saying when you were signing over all of your repercussions for these, cement bottoms and balloon tops?
Okay, so the notes I took from the whole session was a way to avoid the call coming from inside the house is to not really dwell on the past, but to focus on the resolution. Do you mean like if the dog chewed the shoe, focus on getting new shoes versus focus on how the shoes got there and what the dog was thinking? And what do you mean focus on the
In
resolution?
that analogy with the dog chewing on the shoe, was the dog hungry? Right? Is the dog rambunctious? Is that natural for the breed? We used to have a Doberman, and we were told that the Dobermans will eat the walls if you don't run them, if you don't keep them, they had high energy. They're a high energy dog. So then we had a conversation. It took us 6 years to get that dog because we had to settle in our life so we could support the activity of the dog. You know this. You have doggies. You know that they have to run. They have to get that off. It's gonna happen. And so you can't be upset when you give a child a responsibility and then the child is being a child. You give a 6-year-old an iPhone 30 and then the 6-year-old come home without the iPhone 30 and you say, where's the iPhone 30? Oh, I don't know. It was a 6-year-old. Like that was, you did that. You set him up, her up to be irresponsible because they were 6. They were supposed to be irresponsible. Any idea of the dog chewing up the whatever, dogs chew up stuff. When you bought the dog, you had to have some type of budget. You're an entrepreneur and you talk to me about contingency budgets. I won't get into your business, but you talk about contingency budgets and the fact that when you had a mate, she couldn't understand where all the money was going. And you was like, the money is going for just in cases. The money is going for when things inevitably do happen. I'm not coming out of pocket and we not shutting off the lights and eating ramen. Like that's where I have to be mindful and responsible enough to accept whatever responsibility or situation that I place myself in. So when the dog chews up the shoe, you want to say, okay, dang, I had a good run. That dog that ran by 37 pairs of shoes and happened to get this one. I have a friend of mine, a good friend, where the dog chew up her glasses and the dog's no longer there. I can respect that. I can respect that. She was like, oh, one and done, NCAA tournament. Okay. In order to, she didn't kill the dog or anything like that. But the moral of the story is the dog chewed up the glasses. And that was, I can't get over this. Every time I look at the dog, I'm angry about the glasses. This is a metaphor for relationships. When somebody does something that you can't get past, do not try to fight through it when you know you. You got to move on because you know every time I look at this person, I'm going to be reminded of the malfeasance. I'm going to be reminded of the negative impact that I felt, whether it was intended or not. I felt something bad and I know me. I can't get over it. I got to move on. Good, bad, or indifferent. And I don't have to explain it to anybody. I don't have to explain why I got rid of my dog because my dog ate my product glasses. I don't need to do that. I'm getting rid of the dog. Done and done. And then you feel like, okay, something happened. I took control and I made a decision. And there's something liberating about that ability to make those decisions. So in the idea of the dog eating the shoe, you got to say, is this dog more important than the shoes? How many shoes? Once again, how long do you give it before you pivot? How many shoes can this dog eat before this dog got to go for the ride? Right? What do we got to do here? And so those are decisions that had to be made. That's my response to that.
All right, I appreciate you. Appreciate your thoughts. Appreciate your time. Tell us about the dream, Coach.
No dream.
No
No
dream?
dream. No dream,
How can
man.
you be reached?
So congratulations to my daughter. She graduated from school last week. And so I spent time attending that graduation. And just, I realized that as we assess dreams, and you and I talk about it all the time because you're the dream master, when your mind is occupied and singularly focused, it doesn't give my mind. I have the kind of mind that dances all around and does things that I wouldn't normally do in my dream state. But because I was so focused on that, I was going to sleep knowing I had to get up at a certain time and waking up before the alarm and all of that. And I just didn't get a chance to really relax in my dream state. And it was funny because I was trying to force it last. I took 2 naps today trying to get a dream in and was like, it ain't going to work. I just, and it's okay. It's okay. I realized by having this platform, everybody doesn't remember their dreams. People comment on that. But so that was the situation. I would like to say, thank the folks who commented on the episode from last week where we were paying tributes to mothers by speaking of or commenting on your first fond memory of your mother. If you have not got a chance to go and provide that tribute to your mother, that'll be on YouTube forever. Go back into last week's episode, session 10, click on it and comment your first fond memory that you have of your mother. I think we had 2 or 3 that were out there. That was kind of cool, but there's still a chance to do that even though Mother's Day has passed. Happy belated Mother's Day to those who weren't here last week. We did a special, little thing for that. But yeah, that was a situation with the dream. So if you had another question you wanted to run by in lieu of the dreams, I could take that question, or we can shut it down and get ready for next week.
I probably can shut it down. What do you think about playing with fire means you get burned? Is that the call coming from inside the house, or is that just wisdom?
No, I don't think that's. I heard a statistic that I talked to my wife about last night. And the statistic is, if you had to say, and this might go over some people's heads, so I apologize. I'm talking to my client. What percentage of NBA players have an injury throughout their career that requires surgery or significant time off? What percentage of players are exposed to an injury like that in the NBA? 100%.
Oh, 100. Okay.
There's a 100% chance if you're in the NBA, you're going to get injured. If you're playing with fire, depending on the frequency in which you play with anything, the repercussions of that thing is going to occur. So because you're comfortable playing with fire, you getting burned is not a negative to me. It's what is it, a job hazard, or it's part of the responsibility. You know what I mean? If you type for a living, you will get carpal tunnel, or you at least get stiff joints. You'll have a higher degree of getting arthritis or something to that degree. So yeah, you playing with fire, you have to identify what is fire or what is hot, and if you're willing to be in that situation. Once again, I believe when you use the term play, now being exposed to fire will you get burned? No, not at all, because you know how to move back. But if you're playing around, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. And that's the metaphoric fire, that's physical fire, whatever the case may be. If you mess around with something long enough, it's going to get you if it has the ability to get you and hurt you. That's the nature. If you play with ice, you're going to get frost. Like, what are we talking about? Like this. Yeah, when you playing. You're going to get dunked on. You're going to get, you know what I'm saying? You're going to get tackled. This is the nature of games. And stupid games have stupid prizes.
So I know that my mom's not on here, but I'll tell you a story.
Okay. I appreciate that. It's very vulnerable of you in front of these people.
No,
Because you average 100 subscribers an episode.
I think
Every
that's you.
session,
That's your
you
coach.
get
That
100
had nothing to
subscribers.
do
We
with
have
me. That's you.
1,000 subscribers in 10 episodes. So YouTube has sent letters to us and everything. This is the fastest growing life coaching program out there. We have this session and the next session before we hit session number 12, because we do 12 sessions. And this has just been a wonderful ride, and it's because of the people and their feedback. So I appreciate that.
So you kind of hyped it up a little bit. It's not that good of a story. It's a short story too.
All right, cool.
So she was just going through something, and she said, I asked, how did it happen? They came and she was just going through something, and she was neglecting bills and stuff.
Okay.
And they came and picked up her car, right?
Okay. Wow.
So I asked, like, what happened? Like, why didn't you say anything? He was behind. She said, well, they didn't tell me that they was going to pick it up after that. She knew she was late, but they didn't tell her that they was going to come get it.
Right.
And I was so confused. Like, why would they tell you that they about to come get the car? You know you 3 months. She said, but they didn't tell me if I was 3 months, then they would come get it. If they would have told her, she would have told me. And I'm still confused.
She didn't want to lose the vehicle, but she also wanted to go up to the edge. She didn't, you know what I'm saying? She didn't have the juice like Omar Epps and Crooked Eye. So she didn't know what the ledge was to know what is the threshold for when they'll come get it. Or she didn't know that they had the ability to come get it. A lot of people think they have the keys, right? She wasn't educated enough in the system and the dynamics of how this car ownership or leaseship works to know what all is entailed there. And unfortunately, that's to the benefit of the loaner, because when they sign you up for these things, that's in the small print. If this doesn't have, the if-then statements are in the small print. She didn't read all of the things, and nobody ever does. And this was just part of that. But I hope she wasn't making an excuse. I hope she was just saying, hey, I don't have a car now. Shame on me, because I knew I had to pay for the car because they were asking for it. I'm sure she wasn't answering the calls and saying, no, I'm not paying. And they let it go. They, okay, all right, they keep playing with us. I'm sure that didn't happen. I'm sure she thought I could just wait them out, or they don't know where I live now. You know what I'm saying? So that was probably the situation.
So that's all I had for today. Daniel Young said the grace period is too real.
It is. So, all right, cool. Well, once again, we appreciate y'all so much. Make sure that y'all tune in next week for the season finale, I guess it is, of Coach's Decision with Chris P. Reed. Bring your baggage and drop it off for us to sort through. Till next week, I want y'all to take it easy, or at least take it any way you can get it.